Tonight, every Green Lantern book drops at once because DC doesn't give a damn about your wallet. Catwoman gives a bad name to the Black Diamond probability, or it would if the name could get any worse by this point. And when is an ending not an ending? When Blue Beetle decides to end on a cliffhanger to be wrapped up in a totally different book. Thanks, DC. All that and more tonight on the Not-So-New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 73 of the Not-So-New 52. I am your host and I have 16 books. One of them is an annual and half of these books are involved in events. Quite literally, I am already behind on time, so please excuse me if I just skip the niceties of a normal opening and just jump right into things. If you want to know what books are coming out this week, go ahead and check the description of however it is you're watching this episode. They have always been there and will always be there, but I genuinely do not have the time to go over them as I usually do. So, book me. Justice League number 16, written by Geoff Johns, art by Ivan Reis. This is the next part of Throne of Atlantis. And last issue we left off with the Justice League coming in to possibly fight Ocean Master, and Aquaman got in the middle of it. So this issue picks up with Vulko talking to Cyborg up at the Watchtower, and they're basically like, hey, Dr. Stephen Shin, we should probably go get him because A, he knows how to possibly take down Atlantis because he knows all about Atlantis, and B, because we know he knows all about Atlantis, he's kind of part of our war plans where he's gonna totally get killed. And Cyborg's like, all right, fine, I'll go get him. So Cyborg boom tubes down. He tries to grab the doctor in his car, but then, of course, the Atlanteans show up right then and are like, oh, hey, we got someone protecting Shin. Request backup. So then we cut back over to Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman fighting against Aquaman, fighting against Ocean Master. And it's basically an extended scene of everyone just like, we want to fight Ocean Master. And Aquaman's like, please don't. Ocean Master's like, I'll fight them. I don't mind. And he's like, shut up, man. So they basically say, look, this is, if anything happens to him, which I do believe you can do, the entirety of Atlantis will attack. And possibly he will also survive. So let's just not do that and I'll talk him down. But then Batman steps up and throws down some explosive powder, which pisses off Aquaman enough that he punches Superman. Wonder Woman gets involved and just like, hey, if this were the Amazons, I already would have sided with the Justice League. And he's like, well, this isn't the Amazons. This is a lot more complicated than the Amazons. Really need you to understand that, Wonder Woman. She's like, psh, whatever. So at that point, Ocean Master shocks Batman into unconsciousness and just like, wow, these air breathers are really fragile. I could literally kill them all right now. And Aquaman's like, dude, I swear to God, if you hurt them, I will beat you to death. And he's like, oh, so you're threatening them? You're threatening me. Whose side are you on anyway? He's like, I really want a peaceful solution here. So Wonder Woman jumps onto Ocean Master. She gets shocked as well. And then Ocean Master takes that as a sign like, well, here come the Atlanteans. So they all start making their way out of the water to attack the surface world. Cut back to Cyborg. He fights off the few Atlantean assassins and boom tubes Dr. Shin out of there because there's no other way to deal with it. So back to the main league. They're all fighting off the Atlanteans as best they can. Aquaman's trying to command the troops, saying like, hey, you know, I'm royalty, right? And Ocean Master's like, ignore him. He's a traitor. Screw him. So Ocean Master uses his ocean abilities to trap Wonder Woman in a cyclone. Superman, not a fan of that. So he uses heat vision to start boiling the oceans. And Ocean Master's like, oh, I'm sorry. You think you control the ocean? I control the oceans. And my trident controls storms, which causes a huge lightning bolt to come down and strike both Superman and Wonder Woman into submission. And seemingly Aquaman as well. So Ocean Master's like, well, you done got on my bad side, bro. I'm going to go ahead and sentence you to the dark waters along with your allies here. So that's the cliffhanger for that. But then we get the one final page, or a few final pages, I should say. Cyborg shows back up and he's like, hey, Vulko, what's going on? It's like, oh, the Justice League have been taken down. The Atlanteans are attacking. And Cyborg's like, crap. Okay, well, guess I gotta do the thing then. So he teleports down and talks to his dad in the lab. By the way, they have a thing here of Dr. T.O. Morrow, who wants to make his weather machine, which is apparently a robot. I think it's Red Tornado, but they never actually say it. So he's around. Anyway, Cyborg goes and talks to his dad and it's like, hey, remember how we talked before about taking out my lung and allowing me to breathe underwater? And he's like, yes. Cyborg's like, let's do it. And he's like, okay, but like, I want to be clear, you're asking for this, not me. And he's like, just make sure you don't touch my brain or my heart, because that's what really makes me human. Also, I need to do something real quick. And he puts out a call to an unseen force. And he's like, hey, this is Cyborg of the Justice League. We're calling in. And it turns out that he's calling in some people that were being looked at by the Justice League to join, but have not yet been tested. So we have Green Arrow, Element Woman, Black Lightning, Vixen, Shazam, Zatanna, Gold Rush, don't even know that one, Hawkman, Black Canary, and Firestorm. So they're all coming to the rescue, and that's where we leave off. So first and foremost, art in this issue is very good. I don't really have any sort of issue with that. I do think this issue, because the last two in this event have been such major things of like, all these people are dead and how we're dealing with that and setting up the big story that's going on. This one feels a lot less because it's just a standoff between Ocean Master and the Justice League. Like, for an extent, and of course it's the whole thing of like, Aquaman, you would turn on the Justice League? And it's like, yeah, no, clearly he betrayed. It's not that he's looking for a peaceful solution or anything like that. I don't know. The Justice League just feels very, very dumb here, where they're like, no, we have to fight him. And it's like, okay, but maybe just like don't punch the thing for like 10 seconds. Can you not punch for 10 seconds? And the answer is no. Apparently they can't. So overall, I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 7. It does have a little bit of a je ne sais quoi lacking, but it is still a very good part to the event. It's moving along this bit. I know the trench is supposed to show up at some point, so we'll see where they get to. But overall, I'm liking it. So 7. Green Lantern number 16, written by Geoff Johns, art by Doug Mahnke. This is the next part of the Rise of the Third Army. And last issue we had Simon Baz and Agent Fed come out of an exploding building with a bunch of Third Army in it, and Green Lantern Bedard showed up, who's a squirrel. And so we pick up right there, and he's like, hey, you're a Green Lantern, don't recognize you. I was looking for Hal Jordan. He's like, oh, I don't know about that. And he's like, why is your ring empty? Why did you not fuel up? And he's like, I genuinely have no idea how to do the things you're talking about. And Bedard goes and touches the ring, and it spouts off Sinestro's, like, Hal's message face thing. And he's like, okay, that's weird. Where's your lantern? And Simon's like, I don't know. And he's like, okay, I'm going to go put out this fire, and then I'm going to get you to your lantern, and we're going to sort all this out. So Simon turns to Agent Fed, and he's like, hey, so all that evidence inside the house proves I was innocent. And Agent Fed's like, all that evidence inside the house is on fire. But I agree, you are innocent. So I will talk to my superiors and see what we can do. You go with the talking chipmunk. And so they shake hands and go on their way. And we see that Agent Fed calls up Amanda Waller for something. So we cut to the Coast City Cemetery, where, of course, Hal and Sinestro died. Green Lantern Bedard talks to a local squirrel who points him in the right direction. And they pick up the Green Lantern, and he just explains the whole thing of like, you use this, you recharge, it's a direct route to the central power battery back on Oa. You just got to say the oath, and he tells him what the oath is, and Simon charges back up his ring. And he's like, wow, I feel great. That's fantastic. And Simon goes and he holsters his gun, and Bedard's like, we don't really use other things besides our rings. And it's like, so what happens when the ring runs dry? Nothing. We just don't let our rings run dry. And Simon's like, that's stupid. Everything can run out of bullets. I'm going to keep a backup. So at this point, they try to open up the message from Hal and Sinestro, and Bedard tells them, like, no, it's like tangled. You got to think about untangling it and will it into just 2 separate messages. And he does so, and Hal and Sinestro are standing in front of him, and he's like, okay, who are these guys? And it's like, well, Hal's the greatest Green Lantern, and Sinestro's a dick. So let's start with Hal's message. And Hal says like, hey, Guardians went crazy. I'm hoping that this ring finds somebody cool. Just know that we may be trapped in Black Hand's ring. Also, go find Carol Ferris and tell her I love her. And then he's like, all right, that works. Sinestro, what about you? And Sinestro's like, go find Arkillo. He's loyal to me and he'll save my life. I literally care nothing about you. And they're like, cool, great messages. So Bedard explains, like, Simon asks how it's possible that they even shared these messages, and Bedard explains, like, anything you can imagine is pretty much possible with the ring. You just have to will it. And Simon just gets that thought in his head. He's like, anything is possible? And Bedard's like, yeah, totally. Anyway, we're going to go do Hal's thing because Sinestro, once again, is a dick. So let's go find where Carol Ferris is, probably in deep space. And Simon says, well, hold on. You're saying this is Hal's ring. You're saying I'm probably going to have to give it back when we find him. If so, there's one thing we need to do while I'm still on Earth. And he calls up his sister and says, hey, get to your husband's hospital room. So she goes to the hospital. She sees her husband lying there, still comatose. Simon comes in through the window and is like, okay, hi, yes, we already met, but I'm still a Green Lantern now. I can fly. Bedig's here. He's a talking squirrel. Anyway, I can do literally anything. And I'm going to bring Nazir back to life. Like, I'm going to get him out of his coma. And Bedard, he hears all this and he's like, that's not really how the rings work. Like, that's not a thing that's possible. Like, you can make things that are possible. You can't, like, bring back people. And he's like, watch me. So he starts blasting at Nazir, and some nurses notice, like, there's some creepy green light coming out of that room. So they, looking through the windows, like, oh, wait, that guy's a terrorist. We should probably call security. So now they're on a ticking clock. Nazir's still not waking up. And Bedig's like, no, seriously? Like, this is not possible. Like, no Green Lantern can do that. But he, like, really wants it. So he keeps on pushing. And he's like, come on, I can do it. And finally, he's like, I have seen so much unbelievable crap over the last few days. And you're telling me that this is where the line is drawn? Bull. I'm going again. And he pushes, and his like eyes start bleeding. He's got this huge energy field around him. And then finally the ring conks out and nothing happens. And Bedig's like, I'm sorry. This is like a lesson you got to learn as a Lantern. That yes, a lot of things are possible, but not like everything. And he's crying and he's upset about it. His sister is like, look, you're not to blame for him being in a coma. This isn't your fault. I forgive you. Everything's fine. And of course, then Nazir wakes up and he's like, hey, what's going on? Why you wearing that weird getup, Simon? And everyone's all happy and hugging and they're great. And Bedig's like, okay, well, guess I was wrong. And he looks over at a nearby TV as security starts like about to break down the door. And he sees there's a report that Guy Gardner is on Earth and has gotten arrested. And Bedig's like, I'm sorry, Guy's on Earth without his ring and he's currently in jail? That smells fishy. Hey, Simon, we got to go make one more pit stop beforehand. Simon's like, hey, man, well, I just saved my brother-in-law, so I'll do whatever. So he flies out of the room and Bedig's like, okay, but like for real, you maybe are more important than just a replacement if you're able to do things like that. So we're going to keep an eye on you for a little bit. And then we get the one-page epilogue of what are Hal and Sinestro doing? And they're still following the hooded figure through the dead zone. And Hal's like, hey, if you want us to follow you, we need to know who you are. And hooded figure's like, fair enough. And he pulls off his hood and he's like, hi, I'm Tomar Ray. I was the first Lantern you ever met, Hal. And Sinestro, you're kind of the reason I'm dead. Turns out Rise of the Third Army is a stupid event and doesn't really matter. We need to look forward to the next event, which is the first Lantern. So get ready for that. So yeah, I think this is a super solid issue of showing Simon off. I think it is a good thing to say, here's why Simon is more important than just the guy in between the other times Hal is wearing it. So did a great job there. Art-wise, fantastic. I really don't have many bad things to say about this issue at all. No, it's genuinely just a fun time. I'm going to give this one an 8.5. I really do enjoy it. I think this is a high point for Simon so far, and I look forward to seeing where he continues in the next part of the event. So, yeah. Green Lantern Corps number 16, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Fernando Pasarin. This is the next part of the Rise of the Third Army. And last issue, Guy got arrested because he tried to play hero without a ring. This issue picks up in Atlanta, Georgia. There is a bunch of Third Army just absorbing the whole city. And on a TV behind the scenes, we see Guy being brought into prison. And the Guardians are like, oh, hey, that works out pretty well. Every one of the Third Army in Atlanta right now, go find Guy Gardner and take care of him because he's in a nice little safe location off to the side. And we see Guy in prison bars and his bunkmates like, man, do you know how many people here are going to try to kill you? So many, including me. I get first dibs. And he blows smoke in Guy's face, and Guy just punches him, knocks him out in one hit, and guard comes up and is like, what happened to him? And he's like, I don't know. He just fell asleep. Anyway, you have a visitor. So leads Guy down to where his brother and sister are waiting for him in a visitor's room, and Guy basically does the whole like, guys, don't worry about me. I deserve to be here. I'm a screw up. I'm a creep. I'm a loser. What the hell am I doing here? And as he's complaining, woe is me, his sister just slaps him across the face and is like, hey, cut that out. That's not how gardeners act, you weirdo. And of course, at that exact moment, all the alarms start blaring. There's a security breach. Someone's breaking into the prison, and it turns out it's the Third Army. And Guy, who can't see the screens, is like, are they pale blue and don't have mouths? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, okay, I need to get out of these cuffs right now because those things are going to kill us all. And the guard that's watching him is like, no, you're in prison. And he's like, dude, are you serious right now? I'm a Green Lantern, damn it. So the guard unlocks him and says, hey, all right, get us to an armory. We got to go. Meanwhile, John Stewart and Fatality have tracked down the pieces of Mogo, and it turns out they're being used by space terrorists to hold entire planets hostage by using the willpower inherent to Mogo's body to like power a space laser. And John's like, that's not good. Let's go get Mogo out. And so he goes and shields the planet from the space laser, and then Fatality like strips out their ship's entire engine stuff and breaks out Mogo's pieces. And it's just like, wow, you guys are screwed. And they're like, yeah, we are, as they fall down into the planet. And then John's like, all right, cool. So all these pieces are Mogo. That's great. We can get them back all together. And then for no reason whatsoever, John's like, hey, by the way, Fatality, weren't you in Green Lantern New Guardians? And she's like, I was, but I'm not anymore. All you need to know is Sade, the Guardian, is alive, and Ganthet was stripped of his emotions, and Kyle's real pissed about that. And he's like, oh yeah, Ganthet had emotions. You know, I'm starting to think that the whole reason we were sent out here was as a distraction. And she's like, yeah, we should get back to that. So we see Guy and his brother and sister all lined up with submachine guns, and they're saying like, yeah, we're gonna go down fighting. We're gonna take out these guys because Gardner's motto is gotta live till you die. And as they start breaking in, they start firing off shots like crazy until all of a sudden Simon Baz and Green Lantern Bedard, as seen in Green Lantern number 16, bust into the prison and are like, hey, Guy, we're here to rescue you. Something's going on with the Guardians. And Guy's like, really? Not the time? Can we just attack these things as much as possible? And then Guy tells Lantern Bedard, like, okay, I need you to get everyone in this prison over to the Ravens football field, except for my brother and sister, who you are going to take back to their house. And the brother and sister's like, no, you can't take us off the field. And he's like, I ain't losing you. So Bedard sends them all away with his ring. And he turns to Baz and he's like, hey, Chucklehead. He's like, my name is Simon Baz. Yeah, Chucklehead. I need you to use that ring because I don't have one right now. Here's what you got to do. And we see Simon fly out and away as Bedard does his best to contain all the Third Army inside a bubble. And then Baz flies back with a whole bunch of nuclear warheads, or I should say missiles, that he picked up from a nearby naval station. And they phase him through the bubble and blow up the entire Third Army inside. And it's like, all right, cool, that worked. Good job, Zab. And he's like, that's Baz. You kind of suck, Gardner. And Bedard's like, all right, we got to go. And both of them manage to agree on one thing of, yeah, that's a good idea. So they fly their way up to the moon and land next to Tranquility Base. And Guy's like, okay, so who's the newbie? What's going on here? And He's like, long story, it'd be easier if we just show you. And they activate the message that was stored in Simon's ring from Hal and Sinestro that are basically just saying, hey, the Guardians are trying to destroy us. And Guy's like, that makes sense now. I think I get it. So that's where we leave off. I like it. I think it does a good job of setting up the familial aspect of Guy a little bit more, because we have had that across several issues now. But this is the first one that shows them fighting side by side rather than pretty much just Guy stepping up and the rest of them being in the background. So I enjoy that. I think it's a solid way to develop Guy even more as a character. I do think that if you weren't reading Green Lantern, this is kind of just a surprise of who in the hell is this guy and why should I care? They don't really do a great job of introducing Simon and Bedard, but hey, whatever. I guess it assumes that you read the core book when the event's going on, so I'm not that upset about it. Art-wise, very good. Maybe only a few weird panels where I took a second to have to figure out what was going on, but generally fine. But overall, I'm going to give this one a 7.5. Yeah, it's just a solid next piece of the story, and I believe the story as a whole wraps up in the annual issue of Green Lantern Corps, which is coming up later this month, so check that out. Green Lantern New Guardians number 16, written by Tony Bedard, art by Aaron Kuder. So last issue is technically the annual, and in it, Kyle got dropped off to learn about love. And this issue picks up kind of in the same place. He is being shown moments from his past where love was the most strong emotion, but it turns out there aren't a lot of those, because the very first one is his dad leaving, and it kind of caused him to close off his ability to love truly. And we see that the narration is between one of the Zamorans and a Star Sapphire, and the Zamoran's like, so what's taking so long? And she's like, this kid's like real messed up when it comes to love. And we cut to his next part where he's talking to his girlfriend, and she's about to say I love you, and he stops her. He's like, don't say it, just show it. And also, I use sarcasm to mask my true feelings. And then we cut to a surprise party for Ganthet where Kyle's like throwing it, and he's like, hey, you're kind of like my father figure now because I didn't have one beforehand, so I really do feel strong feelings for you, and one could be called love, but oopsie, I'm not quite able to get the whole way there. And so he's being shown all these moments, and the Zamoran's like, okay, well, here's the thing, we're kind of out of time. Ganthet's on his way to kill him, so get him out of there, and he's just going to have to use the other 6 cores in order to make do. And she's like, all right, well, so be it. So Kyle gets free and is just like, yeah, here's the deal. We made a deal with the Guardians in order to save life, or we made a deal in order to make them think we were on their side. We are not. We're going to turn against them. We were hoping you would be our big weapon once you mastered love, but you're not doing it, so we're just going to send you out there as is. And so at that point, Kyle calls up Carol Ferris, who's on her way back from the annual issue, just like, yeah, we had a whole thing. Don't worry about it. Go read Threshold. Anyway, we'll be back there soon. Do you know how to love yet? And he's like, not really. We're just going to figure out what's up. And I'm supposed to meet the Zamoran Queen here, but she's not showing up. And then, wouldn't you know it, turns out it wasn't the Zamoran Queen. It was Ganthet. He's already here. And he's like, hey, I knew she would betray us, but she's still giving me this last moment between you and I. And Kyle comes up, he's like, hey, I know the real you is in there, Ganthet. I can talk to you. And Ganthet's like, nah, blast Kyle. Kyle uses his green energy to make like a power suit, and then he uses Yellow Lantern energy to blast back at Ganthet. Ganthet puts up a shield. Kyle uses Indigo Tribe to teleport around it. Ganthet turns around and just blasts him again, just saying like, that is how it's done. All done here. All right. And then Kyle, of course, he manages to survive. He spits out red rage, and Ganthet's like, oh, okay, well, that's, if you're going to go all primeval on me. He grabs Kyle in a construct and just like, all right, I also know that you have the orange light and the other ones. Like, I get it. You have those powers. None of them are enough unless you can also use love, which you can't. However, at that moment, the Zamorans show up and be like, but we can, and blast them with a whole bunch of, I guess, pink energy. I don't know what color it would technically be, violet. And it's just like, yeah, well, none of you are anything to stand up to me. I knew you would betray us. And like, well, we knew that you knew that we would betray. Either way, we're going to keep blasting you until you eventually die. So they keep on going. But Kyle's like, hey, can we blast him but not actually kill him? Because I still believe he can be saved. And at that point, the Third Army shows up, and they all leap down and start attacking Kyle and the Zamorans as well. Zamorans stop focusing on Ganthet in order to save their own asses from the Third Army, which allows Ganthet to start coming up after Kyle more directly. And the Zamorans are like, okay, everyone, like, protect yourselves if the Third Army comes near, but as soon as you get a free moment, keep blasting at Ganthet, because hopefully if we take out the leader, it'll take out him as well. And then the rest of New Guardians show up, St. Walker, Arkillo, and Carol. They show up, and St. Walker's superpowers, Kyle gives them a little extra boost. So they are able to really come out and attack Ganthet. He is seemingly about to die, but then Kyle gets in the way, puts up a shield, and just be like, no, I'm not giving up on him. He's my father figure, and if love means anything to you, give him a chance. And Ganthet sees this, and he looks up, and he blasts a hole in Kyle's chest, being like, all right, cool, did it. No matter what happens, he's just a guy. He's just a dude, and he's not worth remembering. And Kyle's like, yeah, you don't get it, old man. I forgive you the same way I forgave my old man, and I'm forgiving myself. I forgive you, because that's what love is. And all of a sudden, he gets access to the violet power, and that then gives him access to all the colors, which means he is now a White Lantern. And he uses his White Lantern ability of life to literally destroy the entirety of the Third Army that's attacking. And Ganthet's like, crap. And he just flies off the planet as fast as he can. And the rest of the New Guardians show up and it's like, wow, all right. You literally scared off a Guardian. You got some cool powers on you. And Carol's like, so you doing okay, Kyle? And Kyle's like, yeah, sorry. We had to go through all that weird emotional stuff, but I'm good now. And I might just be the biggest weapon we got against the Third Army. So let's go to Oa and end this already. To be continued in, I believe it's Green Lantern Corps Annual. So yeah, I mean, this was big. It felt big. It felt emotional. It had like those big sappy speeches. The whole like, I'm never going to give up and I forgive you. It literally felt like the end of a season. I enjoyed it. I think it was great. Art-wise, fantastic. I don't really have anything to fault for this issue, so I'm going to go ahead and give this one a... I'm almost at the 9. Does it deserve it? I'm going to say no to the 9, but it's an 8.5. It's very, very close to a 9, though. I cannot find much wrong with this issue. It just feels like it's missing that little extra something to get it to that extra 9. But it is fantastic, and I really am enjoying this event as a whole, but mainly the way New Guardians is using it to further Kyle as a character. Supergirl number 16, written by Mike Johnson, art by Mahmud Asrar. So last issue was Superboy number 16, and in it the Justice League were breaking into the Fortress of Solitude, and Flash was kind of just doing his own thing. Turns out it was the spin into this issue. But first we pick up way long time ago where Hell has crashed his ship into the Himalayas, and he collapses outside with a bloody drawing of a backward Superman crest on his chest. And we see the Herald from, I believe it was last issue of Superboy, saying, maybe it was Superman, but basically saying like, oh, hey, this dude's here. That must mean it's time. I must tell my master. But then we cut back to now, where Flash is coming out the other side of the wall of Fortress of Solitude, and he's like, whew, didn't think I could vibrate through that. Also, I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to vibrate through anything ever again, so if I don't use the superpower in another comic, that would be why. But then immediately Supergirl tackles him, and she is just like, get out, we're not dealing with any of Kal-El's stuff, just get out of here. And he's trying to get him out, and Flash is like, hey, please stop, and he manages to outspeed her, and she's like, okay, didn't think anyone was faster than me and Kal, that's weird. But as she's firing off heat vision at him, trying to get him to go away, he basically says, like, here's the thing. I was told 2 instructions by Superman. 1, get you out of the fortress as fast as I can. And 2, not to die because you're probably going to try to kill me. So that's all I'm going to do because Superman told me to. And we see him use his, like, twister arm thing to throw her off guard. And he says, like, I'm on your side. Superman, you're not in the right mind. Superman knows what's up. He's just trying to help you. And she's like, I don't want to hear there's no way to save my planet. Really not in the mood for that. I like hearing the good things from hell. So why won't you just let us try to save the planet? And this like super fast fight scene happens and Supergirl's really struggling to keep up with Flash. But she does. And she proceeds to get a handle on both the little lightning bolts on the side of his head and pull him down and just knee him in the face. And he's like, oh my God, if I wasn't vibrating my head right now, I think your knee would be inside my skull. And she's like, yeah, I don't want to hurt you, but I totally will if you get in my way again. And he's like, all right, fair enough. But Superman also gave me a 3rd instruction, which is if you don't come with willingly to do whatever it takes. And so he grabs Supergirl and they vibrate through another wall, seemingly outside, but it turns out this is just the other side of the zoo that Superman has in his fortress. So they land inside the carnivorous exhibit, more or less, and are attacked by some monsters. Supergirl's like, okay, well, I don't want this guy to, like, die, so I will lead him away from the monsters. But apparently, because of it being so many different creatures, they have, like, a changing habitat. They just end up in a snowy area with some crazy-looking bat owl things. And Supergirl saves Flash from one of them, and then he grabs her again, and they vibrate through the wall once more. But this time, rather than being outside, they're still inside, but they're right next to Krypto. And Krypto shows up and attacks the Flash like, oh, I'll just bark. But then Supergirl's like, wait a minute, hold on. That's Krypto. Oh my God, Krypto, I haven't seen you in it. I can't believe you survived. And Flash is like, okay, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm going to use this as an escape. And he runs off down into a nearby, I want to say armory, where he grabs 2 specific weapons. And Flash is like, sorry, Kara, but I have my mission. And so Kara tells Krypto, stay, don't get involved with this, stay over there. And as she flies down, she gets zapped by something. And Flash is like, Superman told me about this stuff he picked up, which is specially designed by a mad evil genius to disrupt Kryptonian biology. So I'm going to use it to take you out so I can get you out of here. And he keeps on zapping her. Apparently it's powered by kinetic energy, which is right of Flash's army. But then as he's about to finish it off, it just falls off of him. And we see Hell has walked in the room and he just teleports Flash back to the watchtower. And it's just like, well, that was annoying. Anyway, turns out they're still here in the fortress, but no matter, they shouldn't mess with powers they don't understand. And Hell does this whole thing of like, Supergirl, I can't lose you. You mean so much to me now. And just know you're never in danger as long as I'm here. And she's like, oh, that's so sweet and so awesome and whatever. So at this point, he reveals the machine, which is like, it's almost time. We're almost finished with our star chamber, and we will be able to save Krypton. And I'm so happy that even if it doesn't work out, I'll never be alone again. And then we get just a hint of something else completely unrelated, as far as I can tell. Some weird lizard aliens are flying through space on the other side of the Milky Way galaxy, and they come across a big thing in the, like, making its way towards the middle of our solar system. And the lizard aliens are like, Jesus Christ, I know what that thing is, and if it's heading somewhere, they're all doomed. And we see it's this giant thing. I don't know, it looks like a guy, but it's also made out of rock, and it's just a thing. And I'm guessing it's the master of that herald from the beginning, but either way, it's a thing. So this was a little bit scattered. I feel like they didn't have anything to really go in this Supergirl issue, so they had to just manufacture a reason to have a Supergirl issue, and so they did the whole Flash thing in the other part. It's not great. I don't really think it fits in as well, because by the end of it, you get the exact same thing that we had last issue. She's more or less falling for hell, and they're still going to destroy the solar system, but she doesn't know about it. It doesn't feel like it's necessary, I think, is his worst part, barring the opening and closing scene, which feel like they're setting up something entirely separate to this arc. So we'll see where that goes. But I'm going to give this one probably like I'll give it a 6.5. And a lot of that's Crypto. I like Crypto. He's a good boy. So yeah, not great, not awful, but it definitely isn't necessary. Superboy Annual Number 1, written by Tom DeFalco, art by Tom Derenick, Yvel Guichet, and Iban Coelho. So, in Superboy number 16, Superman got abducted into a pocket dimension and Superboy went in after him. And this issue is just, how do they get out of that? And we see Superboy is all wonky, like they're not in a place where three-dimensional makes any sense. And he comes across Superman and just like, hey, I'm here to rescue you. Although I don't know how to get out, so could you maybe rescue me? And Superman's like, all right, I really would have preferred you didn't, but whatever, we'll figure it out. And then Superboy goes through his whole goddamn origin of how we get here and everything like that. Doesn't matter. And at this point, we see somebody is looking upon Superboy and Superman just like, they might have a way to get out of here. We need to run some tests on them. So he opens up a portal and sucks them in. And then we go back to Batman, Wonder Woman, and Cyborg, who are like, hey, that thing just abducted Superman. Cyborg, interface with it. And he's like, okay. And he puts his hand on it, is immediately blown away. And Batman's like, dude, you suck. Cyborg's like, yeah. Anyway, we should probably focus on Hell and Supergirl, who are about to blow up the whole solar system. Anyway, back inside, they come out of the portal. Superboy's freaking out, and Superman's like, this place looks like a farm. Why are we in an alien farm? Anyway, let's go figure out what we need to go do. There's some houses over in that direction. And I just want to say, for the sake of this issue, the entire time there's this running gag that Superboy cannot stop being quippy and sarcastic, and Superman keeps on calling him out, just being like, can you just take things seriously for once in your life? And he's like, no. It keeps happening. Either way, they don't have their full power set here, or at least Superman doesn't, so they have to do leaps and bounds in order to get where they're going instead of flying directly. But as they're leaping and bounding, they're talking about their history, and Superman's like, I was born in a farm around here. How about you, Superboy? He's like, I was born a living weapon for some place called Nowhere for a creature named Harvest. And Superman's like, tell me more about this Harvest. But then they get attacked by the planet itself in the form of giant soil fists. And so they start running away from it. The fists evolve into larger creatures. Superman starts blasting it with heat vision. Superboy's using his TK abilities on it, but he's like, hey, do you feel like the ground is screaming a little bit? And Superman's like, no, what does that even mean? What are you talking about? Until finally they get to this tower thing. Superman tries to punch his way in, and Superboy's like, yeah, sometimes punching isn't always the answer. So he uses his telekinetic ability to basically hack his way in, but the people who are watching are like, oh, they passed test number 1. They show great possibilities. Let's put him in test number 2. So they open up the door, fall into another portal, and on the other side is seemingly like a dead future sort of thing. And Superboy's like, this is kind of like the world that Harvest wants. And Superman's like, remind me to check in on Harvest. He kind of seems like a big deal. Anyway, oh, and the other thing is Superman keeps on getting on Superboy for sarcasm, but Superboy keeps getting on Superman for lectures. So yeah. Anyway, more things start attacking them, and they're all coming from the soil, and Superboy's like, okay, but like, I'm really feeling like the ground is a thing here. I'm just going to check that out. And Superman's like, that's stupid. We need to find the portal. He's like, let me check it out. So he uses his telekinetic on the ground, and he's focusing, and he's like, I can feel a consciousness in the planet. Like the whole planet is a consciousness. There's something going on. It's in pain. I'm trying to talk to it. We're not your enemy. Let us help you, please. And so it believes Superboy, and all of the dirt things that are attacking them disappear. And Superman's like, okay, don't know what happened, but sounds good. And at that point, the people who are watching them are like, oh my god, they can do it. They can get us out of here. That's literally the last thing we need. Open up the next warp. And so they open up this hatch. Superboy and Superman go down into it, and they're brought to the third place. But first we get Hel and Supergirl setting up their big star thing, whatever. And Hel's like, I don't feel Superman literally anywhere on this planet. That's weird. Guess he got scared. The rest of the Justice League here, though, and they're not really anything we need to worry about, so let's continue building. So they get down to the third place, which is called the Fields Forlorn, and we see these two people who are watching them are prisoners in here, because this whole place, forgot to mention, is a prison made by a guy named, I can't remember, Carso, I believe. And he's like, hey, we are political prisoners. We are totally innocent. We just dared speak up against Carso. And Superman's like, that's weird, because you look exactly like Carso's megalomaniacal brother named Blastor. And Blastor's like, oh darn, you got me. I'm not even going to put up a fight to that. Anyway, let us fight, and the boy will let us out of our prison. And Superman's like, I don't think you can do that. And Superboy's like, I can kind of do that, but we shouldn't do that. So big fight breaks out. They keep on arguing, blah, blah, blah. Until finally Superboy's like, hey, wait a minute. Okay. Hel is out there, and he's possibly about to blow up the world. We've been in here for a while. We need to just let this guy out. We'll get out as well, and then we can pick him back up later. No big deal. And Superman's like, no, we're not gonna. I don't make deals like that. And Superboy's like, fine, whatever. I'll figure something out. So he thinks for a minute, and he talks to the planet, and he's like, hey, planet, we can't let these monsters call the shots, but we need to do this. So whatever is stopping you from... by the way, I forgot to mention, because this is a story that jumps around a lot. The Blastor is apparently using this planet, which was a peaceful creature meant to, like, help things heal, and it's being used as a prison now, and it hates every second of it. Okay, so he's telling the planet, like, look, I'll help you override your subroutines or whatever, so you can stop being a prison and start being the thing that you need to be. So the planet opens up a warp, it sucks out Blastor and his girlfriend, and Superman's like, I thought we said we weren't going to free him, and Superboy's like, I didn't free them back home. I freed them on the far reaches of an uninhabited galaxy in the middle of an asteroid field. They have no way of getting off that. They are stuck there. And Superman's like, all right, yeah, I'm okay with that. Anyway, let's get out of here ourselves. So they start wiping clean, and then we see the Justice League standing there like, okay, so if Superman's going to be off the table, what's the plan now, Batman? And then the thing opens up, and Superman and Superboy come out, and it's like, hey, how long were we gone? It's like, about 2 minutes. And it's like, oh, cool, Narnia time. Well, let's get back to hell on Earth. And we see that Hel and Supergirl have finished building the thing they need to build. I don't particularly like it. It's such like a filler thing that I feel the only purpose was to endear Superboy and Superman together. And I guess I get it, but it's so strange of it. Like, it had to go to a pocket dimension where quite literally nothing mattered, and we met some villains that don't matter. And like, it's technically a Hell on Earth tie-in, but it's not. It doesn't matter. So I'm not a fan of it, I guess is the easiest way to say. Art-wise, looks good, very fanciful in some places. It's just plot, like, nothing felt... As soon as they entered a pocket dimension, it's like, okay, so you can literally do anything and nothing here will matter. And it seems like that's the case. So I'm going to give it a 6. And any positive on that is the art being good and the fact of I do like Superboy and Superman being endeared to each other. That they have maybe not a friendship, but at least they understand each other. That's something. But I would rather my oversized annuals tying into events have something to do with the event. Nightwing number 16, written by Kyle Higgins, art by Eddy Barrows. This is a tie-in to Death of the Family. And the last issue had Raya being killed by the Joker via Joker toxin, and Nightwing finding out that he has a whole thing planned at Amusement Mile, so he runs off to do that. This issue is really, really fast, so I'm just going to recount it. really, really fast. Nightwing's making his way there, and he's saying like, oh man, this sucks. I really hope they manage to get out of town. Regardless, I'm getting a call from Sonia. I can't deal with that right now. I gotta go and make sure Haley's circus is okay. And he arrives at Amusement Mile and sees that it's been defaced by Joker. And he's over the intercom just being like, hey, Nightwing, I figured out you were with Haley's circus because you kept popping up in all the towns that they went to. So I went ahead and I did something that I think is real creepy. And Nightwing walks into a room and sees that it's filled with unburied skeletons of former Haley Circus act members, and they're all just posed there, and Joker's like, yeah, I know it might be a little bit theatrical even for me, but I stand by it. And Nightwing's like, okay, I'm done. And he pulls out some like throwing daggers and starts throwing them at Joker, who uses some of the corpses as a shield. And he's like, I've got even bigger things in store. And he pushes a button, and it seems like a Joker toxin bomb goes off. Nightwing puts in a rebreather so he doesn't have to deal with it. But it might have also been fear toxin, because as he sees Joker running out of the room, another explosion happens that knocks him off his feet. And as he manages to get up, he sees Joker standing nearby. He's like, hey, check this out. And he presses the button again, and the entirety of Amusement Mile just like explodes. Like there's nothing left. And Nightwing's like, no, this is after I was working on that. And he looks up and sees Jimmy, the clown, standing over him, Joker-fied. And he's like, oh, it's no wonder I'm dead. This is because of you, Nightwing. Or he even says Dick. And then Raya shows up wearing a Nightwing outfit. And he's like, yep, we're dead because of you. This is all your fault. But then Nightwing blocks him out long enough for him to go after Joker. Just starts knocking out teeth, beating him to a pulp. And he's like, remember, I said this was Haley Circus's surprise party. So he rings the bell, and the entirety of Haley Circus starts swarming around Nightwing. They've all been Joker-fied, including the young girl, Christina. And Nightwing's like, guys, please, don't do what you're gonna do. And Joker's like, go ahead and do it. So they all start attacking Nightwing and just ganging up on him. Joker gives Christina, the little girl, a giant spiked mallet, and she comes up and seemingly just smashes Nightwing's head in. Turns out, though, of course, he's fine. We see him coming to as the Joker is dragging him by his feet, saying like, you can't die yet. We still got one last thing to take care of. And we get the last page reveal of Joker in a suit holding a serving tray covered in blood, saying like, this is the real finale. To be picked up in Batman 17. It's fast, it's quick, it's pretty bare bones, all things considered. Obviously, whatever happens after Batman 17 is going to be what the actual end of this plot is. He's going to have to deal with Sonia. He's going to have to deal with losing the circus. He's going to have to lose with his entire circus being Jokerized. There's a lot to take out. This doesn't so much as feel like the ending as much as it feels like setting up the next phase of whatever Nightwing's going to be doing. And I'm interested in it, but it really does bring down what this issue is. It makes it so it's just the stepping stone to get to not only Batman 17, but also the next Nightwing thing. Is it big? Yes, but I don't know how to describe, like, it feels like it almost doesn't matter because it's part of the event. Like, this didn't feel like Nightwing's thing. It felt like some other guy came in and just messed up all Nightwing stuff, and then he's going to leave just as quickly. So, yeah, it's a little iffy in that regard, but I do like the art. I like some of the ways it went with it. The creepiness of Joker digging up all the Haley's circus casts. That's a bit weird, but overall, plot-wise, it just feels like it's not Nightwing's story as much as it is Joker's. So I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 6.5. I still liked it. I still think it's okay, but it's not the best of the Death of the Family tie-ins by far. Red Hood and the Outlaws, number 16, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Timothy Green II. So, last issue we had Arsenal and Starfire show up in Gotham to help Jason, and they came across the Teen Titans instead. this is just following that. So we have them, Teen Titans, coming across an entire building's worth of Jokerized people, and they're trying to fight through them. Arsenal steps up and he's like, hey, you bunch of kids, I'm learning about you just by watching you. You seem to be the fast one, Kid Flash, and I need you to corral all these people up. And Kid Flash is like, you're not my dad. I'm going to ask Wonder Girl what she wants us to do. And Wonder Girl's like, hey, Arsenal, really appreciate the team effort. We kind of just hit things, though. We don't worry about strategy. And he's like, that's so stupid. What? So they shove all of the people back into a building, and Kid Flash uses speed to board up the doors. And Arsenal's like, okay, great idea, good job, but what happens when the doors pop off? And we see that they're already banging against it. And he's like, okay, so guys, I understand that you don't like me coming in giving orders, but we're all here for the same reason. You guys want Red Robin, we want Red Hood. Maybe we can work together. Just do a little something. And Wonder Girl's like, fine, whatever. What's your plan, Arsenal? He's like, I don't have one. And then a little arrow goes beep. And he's like, never mind, now I got one. I analyzed the Jokerized people. They might be able to be changed back, but we need to get all of the stuff for a cure, which my magical ship in the sky that I came in on says is down by the harbor. So everyone who can fly, get down there. And Kid Flash. Bunker and I are going to stay here, and we're going to make sure we take care of the Jokerized people. So they all run off, and Bunker and Arsenal are there as they immediately break through the door. And then Arsenal just goes on a 2-page thing of like, man, these kids, remember when I was a kid and also a junkie? And we see him get brought into one of Toyman's old bunkers by Killer Croc. And Croc is like, hey, you can stay here for as long as you want, but you got to stay in AA. And Roy's like, you're Killer Croc and you're telling me to stay in Addicts Anonymous? And it's like, yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. And he's like, okay, fair enough. So the rest of the crew looking for the cure make their way there. Starfire says something to Solstice about, have you told them? And Solstice says no. I don't know what they're talking about. And I don't know how Starfire would know about it, but regardless, when they get there, they see a whole bunch of boxes that says cure, do not touch. And it's like, okay, this is obviously a trap. So the whole place is rigged to explode as Kid Flash grabs all the girls and is just like, man, I had a dream about this once, but there was a lot less costumes. And he gets them away from the explosion. And they're like, oh no, that was our only chance at saving the people. But it turns out Kid Flash, before he even saved them, he got all the boxes out. Because Joker wasn't counting on a speedster, I guess. So we cut back to the fight, and Arsenal fighting alongside Bunker. He ran out of arrows forever ago, and he talks to Bunker. He's like, hey, Bunker, you can make anything out of psionic bricks, right? And Bunker's like, yeah. He's like, right now you're using them to make big fists, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, well, maybe you should just make a wall out of those bricks, right? And Bunker's like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Maybe I shouldn't just be hitting things. And Arsenal's like, yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to tell you guys. So he makes a whole thing out of bricks, and Arsenal makes the comment of, you just watch, he'll be in the Justice League before he's 20. Yeah. So then we get a 1-page cutaway of Hugo Strange signing books. And then we come back. I wish I could tell you that amounts to anything, but it's just here. So they come back with the cure. They've got it all in boxes. Turns out they're already preloaded into a bunch of syringes, which Arsenal logics that Joker would probably be using it to hold the city hostage later, which sounds totally too convenient. Kid Flash is apparently not good around needles, but Wonder Girl tells him suck it up and go around and inoculate everybody at super speed. So he does so, and as all the victims start to de-Jokerize, they all turn back to normal. And Arsenal and Starfire are like, well, we did a good job here. Glad that we could have helped. And now we just got to go find Red Hood. So then we cut over to elsewhere, where Deathstroke is doing a training montage. And he throws 3 daggers into the pictures of Red Hood, Starfire, and Arsenal. And he's like, I'm more than willing to do this job for free. And then we cut to Joker, who is painting a Red Hood mask, like the helmet, and he's like, boy, this sure is worth the extra effort. And then he turns off the light, and it picks up in, I think, Teen Titans 16. Okay, Hugo Strange, Deathstroke, and Joker walk into a bar. They say, hey, why are we here? And the answer is, they don't know. There is no reason for them to be here. This is not a joke. Why is this happening? Why were they included in this book? I can at least understand the Killer Croc bit, because it's a bit of characterization on Arsenal's part, but like, who cares about what Hugo Strange and Deathstroke are doing in your Death of the Family tie? Like, what? Okay. Not a huge fan of the art. I don't know how to explain it. It's just a bit lacking. Like, the details don't feel like they're there. I can't say for sure that's penciler, but it just feels like there wasn't a lot there. Writing-wise, you just watch. He'll be in the Justice League by the time he's 20. Yeah, okay. Sure he will, Scott. And it's just a bunch of snark and a bunch of sarcasm. It's literally everything you expect from this book, but like more so the Teen Titans book than this, which I have been far more critical on, and it definitely bleeds over. Sure, they're written by the same guy. Doesn't make it any better. So I'm going to give this one a 4. Not a good tie-in, especially because, here's the little secret part, it had nothing to do with the Bat family at all. Not a damn thing. 4. Catwoman number 16, written by Nocenti, art by Rafa Sandoval. This is a Black Diamond probability tie-in, and I don't want to review this, so I'm going to be very brief in my descriptions. Last issue, Catwoman broke into the Black Room, stole the Black Diamond, started turning evil, and then a demon came out, and so did a disembodied boxer's arm. Okay? I won't explain further. So the one scientist in there, Darwin, is telling him, like, that's all evil stuff, and maybe you should put it back. And she's like, I'm not going to give up a diamond. Like, shut up, Dudwin. And he's like, please don't call me that. I'm very fragile. So at that point, the demon is still in the background, and it keeps on growing. And he's like, hey, maybe you could use the monster cutter sword to attack the demon. It's literally jumping out. And she's like, what demon? That's a bunch of hooey, as she's lost in the diamond. And apparently the Argus security is about to break down the door with their guns and whatever. So there's that. Then the black goop that came in earlier, the map to the room, smacks Catwoman on the ass. And she starts freaking out on the demon because she thinks that it smacked her on the ass. So yeah, at this point, she's like, okay, I'm going to put the black demon right in between my boobs, and black diamond, I mean, and I'm going to attack the demon. And Darwin is like saying, hey, maybe you should, not kill it because it just woke up from a 1,000-year nap. It might be grumpy and just confused. And she starts making fun of him, calling him like autistic and stuff like that. And as far as I can tell, that scene goes absolutely nowhere. And it turns out that the demon's name translates to escalate, which means he just makes things worse. He just makes things bigger and worse, and that's why he keeps growing. Cut to the security force outside who's like, hey, we're going to bust in there and we're going to shoot some stuff. And one of the guys like, that's a bunch of spooky stuff in there. I don't think guns are going to work. And they're like, all we know are guns. We're going to bust in there. So they're setting up this whole thing, trying to call the guards that were inside. Darwin answers the walkie-talkie and it's just like, hey, try to get in here because things are getting a little bit nuts. Meanwhile, Catwoman is still attacking and looking super evil, and she manages to get the demon bound by her whip and says, like, all right, get back in that book for another century. If you stay out here, I'm going to keep cutting you. And also, that boxer's arm is going to keep punching you in the face. And the arm comes up and punches him in the face and says, now get back in that book. And the demon gets back into the book as the Argus security force breaks their way inside, or maybe teleports. Genuinely unsure. But either way, Catwoman sees the haunted tank nearby, 'cause sure, and says like, hey, we can use the haunted tank to get out of here. And she puts back on her costume that she used to get in here in the first place and says, now remember, call me by my fake name and I'm going to pilot this tank out of here. And as she's doing so, she's like de-evilified for some reason, despite the fact she still has the diamond on her. And so she uses the tank, it gets out of the room, they make their way out. Apparently the page holding the demon in the book was stuck to her foot as she left, and she managed to make her escape. She meets back up with Trip, the guy who gave her the job, and he's just like, hey, sorry I gave you that job. It was a little bit much. And she's like, stop giving me creepy stuff. I'm out. So then we cut to the home of a guy named Bruce Gordon, who isn't Bruce Gordon. Trip gives him the diamond, and he's like, hi, my name is actually Alex Montez, and I am going to control the power of Eclipso. Okay? Sure. So then final page is Catwoman in Trip's bed, and Trip is like, I'm so sorry. I put you in too much. And Catwoman's like, I lost control. I might never be able to see another diamond again. The end. What? No. 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 Nothing in this made any goddamn sense. I feel like there's so much you can do with the comic medium. There's so much that you can, like, do by having... You're allowed to have the internal thoughts not stand out as, like, a narration. You're allowed to, like, show all these action scenes. You can do so much. So why do nothing? Why do absolutely nothing that makes any sense? If it's just, like, an artistry thing, if you're just like, oh, like, I just want to show off these cool scenes, then let the artist just do that. But it always seems to link back to Ann Nocenti telling the story, and I don't get it, and I don't like it. Ugh, okay. So the question is, what do I rate it? I can't in good conscience give it anything above a 5 for sure. Honestly, I think I'm going to go down to like... I got to go to like a 1.5. It's just bad. It's like... There's no thing in this book that feels like, yes, this is the story that should have been told. Like, there's no way you can get that perspective. I genuinely don't know what they're even aiming for in this book anymore. So yeah, 1.5. Christ. Batwoman number 16, written by J.H. Williams III and W. Haden Blackman, art by J.H. Williams III. So, last issue and the issue before are Batwoman coming into the battle-torn city and ready to fight. And she opens up this issue coming across Maggie, and she's like, oh, it's so good to see Maggie again. I literally can't hear anything but her beautiful voice. And Maggie's like, what are you doing? Get over there and help them. Why are you stopping over here to help us? Jesus Christ, Batwoman. And Batwoman's like, yeah, okay, fair enough. As she looks on, she sees all these monsters. She sees Medusa. She sees Killer Croc has turned into a literal Hydra. And she's like, all right, yeah, there's a lot going on here. And, it's also destroying my building, my home base, so better get on that. And Wonder Woman, we see her internal monologue is like, despite the fact this doesn't directly link to me, I kind of feel responsible. Like, I should be in there taking on the fight. And so Batwoman, she sees the Hydra attacking her building, her whole base, and she starts fighting her way towards it. Wonder Woman stops her, like, hey, literally, like, you cannot beat the Hydra. I know you're strong, I know you're smart, but, like, you can't do that. I might be able to, maybe. So you take care of the kids, and that'll be like the real end of it, and I'll just deal with the Hydra. And Batwoman's like, fine, I guess. So this jumps around a little bit. I'm just going to give you each plot on its own. We have Cameron Chase fighting in the middle against all the monsters and whatnot. She sees Medusa and Bones. Director Bones shows up. He's got a whole armor suit on, and he's wearing special glasses so he's not impacted by Medusa's gaze. And he comes to attack her, but then the hook-handed man shows up and knocks Bones out. Cameron Chase shows up, starts attacking the hook-handed man. It comes after her as well, but then before it can attack her, Firebird, Flamebird, one of the two, aka Bet, shows up. She's finally ready to fight again, and she's like, I am so terrified of fighting this man. Dear Lord, please let me win this fight. And she throws a few punches, and she's like, yeah, okay, I'm doing all right. Can't get ahead of myself. Really got to deal with this. And then the hook-handed man punches her in the stomach and just grabs her by the head, and is just like, okay, I'ma kill you again. And she's like, oh God, please no. And I hope that this will work, as referencing some plan that we have yet to see. So then we get the other plot going on, I guess, which is the Medusa has made her way down to the docks where Morrow is, along with a bunch of the other monsters. And she has all the children, and she's planning on a blood sacrifice into the ocean to summon her mother, aka the mother of monsters, aka a goddess named Ceto. And she gives a whole backstory on Ceto of how she was goddess of the oceans, I believe. Yeah, goddess of the oceans. She gave birth to a bunch of different like creatures and monsters and stuff like that, which allowed the gods to do crazy things like see the future and stuff like that. Like it allowed for a whole bunch of cool stuff to happen on Earth. But then the gods declared like, hey, mortals and monsters can't live together, so we're going to hunt the monsters. And then Ceto was basically put on trial, and instead of being killed, they banished her and said, like, you are now only known as the mother of monsters. Your cool ocean goddess thing is gone. So they're trying to summon her via the children's blood, which, once she arrives, she'll be hungry and devour the children whole. But right now, they're alive. So Batwoman fights her way through a bunch of the monsters that have been made by Morrow and Medusa. And as she's fighting her way through, she's not doing so hot. But then the believers of the crime religion, the religion of crime, the crime Bible, and led by Kyle Abbott, who I guess was in an earlier issue that I forgot about because he's a werewolf, they show up and start beating up all the other monsters. So that's a thing. Wonder Woman fights the Hydra. She apparently swings her sword so fast it superheats the metal and cauterizes the stumps. Yep. So anyway, Batwoman manages to make her way to the main fight. She gets over to where Medusa and Morrow are, beats back a couple of the things, and she realizes, like, hey, wait a minute, the kids are here. Oh my God, the kids are here. I can save the kids. And she looks over and she sees La Llorona nearby, and she's like, Maria, they stole these people's children. What if they were your children? And Maria's like, they were my children. I had my children. You stole my children, Morrow. And La Llorona seemingly just kills Morrow straight up and out. But Medusa steps in and she's like, you're too late. We already put their blood in the ocean. They will be sacrificed. Here comes Ceto, a.k.a. the mother of monsters, as we see this huge thing emerge from the ocean. So I believe finale next month. I liked it. I think that it's doing a good job of focusing primarily on Batwoman and Wonder Woman and saying, you know, this is world's finest. It's the name of the arc. I do have a little bit of an issue with when it gets to the other characters, in that it feels so fractured and so split that, like, the whole returning of Flamebird and Bet into the fight should have been this big triumphant moment, but it got one page. And it was cut short. And I know that in the finale we're probably going to get something more, but it just feels like every time that a different character shows up, they're barely given enough screen time for me to care at all. And I also want to point out, a lot of this book is prose. A lot of this book is just writing, like, not speech bubbles, not having to fit it into like them saying the thing. It's just, here's a paragraph, and it goes on and on and on. And it's not bad, but it is at the expense of pacing. It tells a good story, but the fight itself slows down. So it's a weird thing with pacing in this issue, and how I don't think that it does quite as much as it should. Mainly because they had to stop the entire story to be like, here's the origin of the mother of monsters for 2 full pages with just blocks of text. So, yeah, I mean, it's good, but I got to give it like a 7. There is a few things wrong with it that I think when we get to the finale will probably be better, but there's a reason that they aren't just books. There's a reason that they're comic books. Stop making them books. Birds of Prey number 16, written by Duane Swierczynski, art by Romano Molenaar. Last issue had Katana quit the team, a guy named Condor was in Japan, and Batgirl introduced a Talon named Strix to join the Birds of Prey. Okay, so this issue picks up pretty much right at that last point where Black Canary and Starling are like, she's Talon. We almost died because of the last Talon. No more Talons. And Batgirl's like, no. She's cool. Her name's Strix. Just chill. And she's like, no, we're not going to chill. Are you crazy? Are you like under some sort of spell? And Batgirl's like, when has that ever happened? She's like, pretty much every other issue. So tries to introduce, and the team's like, okay, but like, why a Talon? Yes, we're down a member. Katana left, but like, seriously? And she's just like, no, she's cool. I had an annual, and she saved me. She's like, she's chill. And at that point, as she's starting to explain the story, Condor comes swooping in and tackles Strix into a wall. And she's like, oh God, no, not this guy. So at that point, Strix attacks Condor. And Black Canary and Starling are just trying to stop this from becoming a bigger thing as he uses his telekinetic ability on her. And, you know, Strix, not taking going into a wall so well, stands back up, is ready to full-on murder Condor. So Starling comes over and tackles Condor off the edge of a building so that Strix can't get to him. Then we see flashbacks to the annual, or at least what happened right afterwards, and Batgirl's like, hey, you saved my life, what can I call you? And she's like, my name's Mary. She has to write it down because she's a mute. And she's like, okay, but like, let's not use our real names because we all have superhero names. And Strix is like, why? And she's like, so anyway, I've come up with this cool Latin word that kind of means owl. It's Strix. That's your name now. So at this point, Strix punches Black Canary in the face, and she's like, oh, why can't anybody join this damn team without fighting each other first? And Batgirl jumps away being like, okay, look, if you want to beat her up, you got to beat me up first, but I know we're friends and you're not going to do that. Black Canary's like, I will blow her away if she so much as tries to near you. Cut over to Starling and Condor. She's just ripping all the wiring out of Condor's wingsuit. And he's just like, no, we're going to fall. What's wrong with you? And so they crash down onto a roof. And she's like, I just wanted you to know what it feels like because you dropped me off on a roof back in Japan. So Batgirl continues to talk to Strix, and Black Canary is like, hey, make sure she doesn't murder anybody. And Batgirl's like, shut up. Anyway, Strix said, we know you're cool, so don't attack friends. And then Condor and Starling land like right next to him. And he's like, how did you even get into my suit? It's tamper-proof. And she's like, I have a very unique set of skills. Anyway, are we all cool now? And Condor's like, yeah, sorry, I thought you were a villain. No hard feelings, right? And Strix goes to throw a punch, and he uses his mind abilities to knock it away, and just like, all right, well, I guess we're a team now. Cut to 3 weeks later, where they are a team, and they're going in to fight. And turns out that way back in, I think the Zero issue, there was a guy who had basilisk weapons that was dealing at the Iceberg Lounge. Turns out he got out of jail. He has more weapons, and he's going to use it to take down the entire city's power grid. They found out about it, and they're coming to interrupt the deal. So Starling and Strix go in first, trying to get in there and stealthily. Starling keeps on cracking dirty jokes, trying to get anything out of Strix, but Strix is like just holding her finger to her mouth, just like, shut up, don't want to deal with this. They kind of make fun of Condor for joining an all-girl team. It's like, you're joining the Birds of Prey, Condor, mainly because you dress like a bird, but people might think you're... And then he interjects with, you mean awesome, right? And it's like, yeah, awesome. So at this point, they see all the armed guards, and it's like, all right, Strix goes in first, uses her stealth to knock out pretty much all the guards before they're able to do anything to alert anyone inside. And as they get to the building, Starling's like, okay, yeah, this is wired up real good. Like, if I push on this too hard, it's gonna just alert everybody, and there's no other way in. So then Black Canary's like, okay, I'll knock down a wall with my canary cry when we got to move in real quick and make sure nobody has a chance to push the button to take down the grid. But then, wouldn't you know it, just as soon as she's about to use her cry, she starts getting supercharged, and she's like bursting with energy, and she lets out her canary cry, which not only knocks the house down, but also seemingly takes out the entirety of the building. And the entire power grid for the city goes down, and we just see her standing there covering her mouth like, oh God, what have I done? And that's where the issue leaves off. So I get that, there wasn't an immediate threat, and so we just did a thing of like a time skip basically until there was a threat, but a lot can happen in 3 weeks in terms of getting your team to act like a team, and yet nothing seemingly happened in those 3 weeks because they literally, like, they're just picking up over the exact same point they left off on. I don't get why it had to be 3 weeks, I guess, is my thing. We could have just as easily had Batgirl, as soon as, like, the meeting completed, she just, like, oh, I'm getting a alert that that guy from before is currently holding a meeting. We gotta go. I don't understand why the 3 weeks had to pass, because it seems like nothing happened in terms of them being more of a team. Just a bit strange of a choice to me. Not inherently bad, but just weird. I'm getting kind of tired of the Black Canary being supercharged at the end of like literally every issue. Just explain it. Just, I know that it's her husband. We all know it's her husband. They showed that it's her husband. Do it already. Pull the trigger. I'm tired of waiting. So yeah, I'm going to give this one like, I'll give it a 7, just because it didn't do anything that's like objectively horrible. And I do like the fact of they are organically changing the team up. Like, okay, here's how people come, people go. Condor, we introduced last arc. It makes sense that he's around. I'm okay with the choices they're making. I just don't think this issue was particularly strong in actually doing anything besides getting the new team set up. And the fact that that was at the halfway point of the issue, you could have done more with it. So yeah, 7 for this, and hopefully it can up its game a little bit next, I guess, arc. DC Universe Presents number 16, written by Marc Andreyko, art by Robson Roca, aka the final part of Black Lightning and Blue Devil. So last issue, Black Lightning got shot a lot. That's it. So this issue, apparently, it's literally his life flashing before his eyes. We just see all the stuff he did, and he's like, boy, I sure do wonder why I'm remembering this stuff. I feel tired, as we see him lying in a pool of his own blood. And then we cut over to Blue Devil, who's still fighting against the demon. I can't even remember what it was, Nibiru. I know it's not his name, but I'm going to say it until I get otherwise. So he's fighting the demon Nibiru. And Nibiru's like, okay, you're not even worth dirtying my hands over. So he spawns up a whole bunch of movie monsters, including a vampire, a big executioner guy, a werewolf, and Frankenstein. They all start attacking Blue Devil, who of course is without his costume at this point. He's just Cassidy. What's his name? Daniel Cassidy. He uses some of the props in the studio, which I think they're in the studio right now, to attack them, and he gets his back sliced by a werewolf, and seemingly that's it for him, because it is a giant-ass werewolf. So Black Lightning is still alive. Tobias Whale comes up, and he's like, man, I expected more from a superhero. Oh, well, guess you'll die here. And Black Lightning whispers something, and he's like, what'd you say? And he says, see you in hell. And then he zaps Tobias pretty much across the room into a wall. And that's the point where Daniel realizes, like, oh, crap, my friend got shot a lot, and he's seemingly dying. But Frankenstein picks him up. Daniel punches Frankenstein in both of his eyes and runs over to try to help Black Lightning. Black Lightning's like, just save my dad. I'm through. So he sees the Blue Devil costume nearby, and he's like, don't worry, I'm going to save us all. And he puts it back on, gets his power back, and proceeds to immediately wipe out all the monsters. He goes after Nibiru. Sorry, Nebiros. I was really close. So he fights Nibiros, and he's literally just destroying this guy. Like, he does not stand a chance. But Nibiros is like, up. Fight me for too long, and you're forgetting about your friend over there. And we see Tobias has gotten back up at this point, and he's, as Jefferson is seemingly getting somewhat better, Tobias comes up and he just starts like crunching his bones of his legs like under his feet. And Black Lightning tries to throw off some lightning. It's not working. And as Blue Devil's watching this, he's like, oh no, what can I possibly do? And Nibiros is like, I can make a deal if you wanna do that. I will let your friend get out of here, but you must let me go. And he's like, no, I'm not going to make a deal with you. But then as he looks over at Black Lightning, his soul is literally leaving his body. And he's like, crap, okay, I'm out of time. And so he shakes Nibiros' hand and says, yep, I'll let you go if you save my friend. So at that point, Blue Devil directs his attention over to Tobias, starts beating the crap out of him. And as Tobias is distracted, Black Lightning gets up and starts zapping the crap out of Tobias. And it seems like he's a little bit bloodlusty, and Blue Devil picks up on that, and he's like, you're not actually going to kill him, are you? Black Lightning's like, yeah, totally am. He killed me after all. And he's just like, oh, wait, Nibiros, did you mess with his head? Nibiros is like, yeah, a little bit. And so Blue Devil gets in the middle of the fight, and he's like, stop, you can't kill him. This isn't you. I won't let you do this. And he says, like, before you can, I'm going to make it so there's nothing left to kill. And he takes the soul out of Tobias's body and leaves it as just like a husk. And he turns back to Nibiros and he's like, you're a dick and you broke the terms of our agreement. And he's like, no, I didn't. I told you I'd bring him back to life. I never said he'd be the same. He's like, well, you betrayed me. So let's see how that feels for you. And so he betrays Nibiros and says like, yeah, no, like whatever. You said that we'd be able to let you go, but I'm changing that. And turns out what he's doing, because he can't kill Nibiros since he's immortal, is he's trapping Nibiros inside of the husk that is Tobias Whale. So Black Lightning gets up, he gets his dad out of there, and it's just like, okay, we did it. Everyone's safe. So some time has passed. They're in the hospital visiting his father. Black Lightning doesn't remember how he came back. He's like, oh, I just remember being shot a lot, and then I got my dad out. How'd that happen? Blue Devil's like, I don't know. Crazy mystical stuff, I guess. So they visit the father. He's doing fine as well. We see Tobias is in a prison under like maximum security lockdown. And inside of his eyes, Nibiros is like, I will have your soul, Blue Devil. I swear it. And the final page is just a Blue Devil, Black Lightning team up as they're going out to fight more crime. And it ends with the beginning. It's the end, though. We don't get any more of that. So anyway, yeah. One thing I wanted to bring up is when Blue Devil goes and attacks Tobias, he says, oh, Josiah. So unless I'm missing a reference, I think they just forgot Tobias's name. Which is weird, considering I think they say it on the same page. Little error there. Anyway, it's a fine enough issue, but I definitely think that with all the stuff that the first two issues set up, this kind of felt lackluster, especially in that you have these movie monsters being brought to life and then immediately taken care of. Like, and also Nibiros was just so big of a threat, and then, oh, all it took was Blue Devil being a little bit angry, and that's it. And I'm like, all right, well, nothing in this seemed that big of a deal. It's just that our heroes were stupid enough to get caught with their pants down twice. So, yeah, I don't know. It was a little iffy for me. Overall, I'd say this is probably... I gotta give it like a 6.5. And that even feels a bit high, but I'm going to stick with it. I mean, just art's fine. I like the writing in a general sense, but it just feels like as a final bit of this arc, it's just, who cares? You know? Like, it's nothing. Next time we're going to get just a couple of single one-shots as the series wraps up with issue 19, I believe. So, yeah, it's... In terms of the last arc that they're going to do, this just felt like a letdown. Like, there's a reason this book got canceled, and I don't want to point any fingers, but it's New Challengers. New Challengers is what did it. Wonder Woman number 16, written by Brian Azzarello, art by Cliff Chiang. Last issue we left off with Wonder Woman coming across Orion as they searched for her half-brother Milan, who is like a seer and also controls flies, and the flies all attacked the bunch of them. So this issue picks up, same place, underneath Brooklyn, and Milan's attacking all of them with flies, and it is coating literally everything to the point where they can't breathe, and Milan's yelling at him to stop fighting, and Orion's robot, he says later it's named like R4 or something, it explodes and shoots a laser at them. And this book has several plots all intertwining, but I'm just going to continue on with that one. It knocks away all of the flies, and Milan sucks them back up, and she's like, okay, all right, truce for now. Let's just hear each other out. What's going on? It's called A4, and it's apparently an extension of Orion's self, so it protects him when he is unable to fight. And Orion points out, all right, here's the whole thing. There is a threat to the universe that begins with the last of the line at the hands of a new god. And Wonder Woman and Lennox look at each other and they're like, a new god, huh? That sounds like the baby that was just born. And Orion's like, are you a baby? I gotta battle with an infant? And Wonder Woman turns to Milan and it's just like, hey, all right, I don't know if this is what's true about the whole new god thing, but could you help us find the kid? We don't know where it is. And Milan's like, you're seriously my half sibling? And it's just, yep, I'm here. I'm want to help. I want to do what I can. And Milan's like, all right, I guess I can help. And he takes off his blindfold, and inside his eye sockets are just maggots, which is such a cool visual. And we see that he's able to see like everything, and he manages to see the baby along with blanking on his name, Hermes, and Demeter. I believe that's how you pronounce it, but like the tree lady. And the kid apparently has stars for eyes, and Wonder Woman's like, okay, stars for eyes, what does that mean though? And Milan tells him, like, stars for eyes means that the baby was able to see me looking at it. So we're not getting the element of surprise, at least. So second plot is the Firstborn, still in Antarctica. He's fighting off some ice giants that we met with last issue. And basically the scientist that is with the Firstborn is saying, like, hey, what are these things and why are they calling you nephew? And it's just like, they're like kind of representations of Hades, but not actually. So he goes and he attacks them just brutally. And they're like, haha, you can't kill us, we'll kill you. And he's like, yeah, I'd love to see it. So they manage to knock him down a little bit. And they turn their attention to the scientist and take off their winter coat. And it turns out underneath, not only is it a woman who has something going on, but it looks like she has like a bunch of different cybernetic parts that are basically making up her body. And since they are somewhat representations of Hades, he's like, oh, it seems that you've managed to cheat death once. Doubt you're going to do it twice. And then the Firstborn jumps in being like, how much you want to bet on that? And he jumps in and just immediately starts eviscerating the Titan. And as he's tearing it apart, its guts just pouring out, him drenched in its blood, he just screams that he's coming for Olympus, Kratos style. So that's B plot. And then C plot, we follow Zola and Hera as they head down to a local bar. And Hera's like, all these crazy drinks on this menu, all we had up in Olympus is wine. I genuinely don't know what to have. And nearby is Ares, and he's like, how about a gin? It's right up your alley, foul and bad smelling. And he's just like, oh, great. Ares, out of all my kids, you're my least favorite. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to take that as a compliment. And Zola's like, all right, I really don't want to deal with this, so I'm going to go to the bathroom. And as she makes her way over there, she's stopped by, I believe it's Dionysus. And she doesn't recognize that he's a god. But she's like, I could put the old lady in a cab. You can get out of here. And he's like, actually, the old man over there talking to the old lady is going to try to kill Wonder Woman. And Zola's like, yeah, okay, I'd love to see him try. And he's just like, how about I tell you exactly what he's capable of? And he whispers something in her ear, and she immediately has to run into the bathroom to throw up. And as she's in there, someone from behind a stall door starts talking, saying that's one way to lose the baby weight. And we see that it's Strife, who has returned to just screw up more stuff some more. And that's the issue. 3 plots, I feel like they all had good movement forward. Wonder Woman and Lennox got some information on the baby as to where they could find it, and they did make the point that they don't know where Demeter is, but Hera probably does, so they're going to get back with Hera and get that info. Firstborn plot, we figured out that the scientist is somebody special as well, so we'll see where that goes. And then I want to call it like the politics of the gods plot, which is the C plot, also got some forward motion there. So overall, very solid issue. Really don't have anything to complain about. I personally cut them into different segments, but they were intertwined very well. I didn't forget like what was happening on one arc by the time it got to the next. So yeah, solid issue overall. Nothing super standout, but just good. So I'm going to give it an 8 in general. Really do enjoy it. And I think we only have like 1 or 2 more issues in this arc. So we will see how and when we get to the end of the Hunt for the Baby storyline. Blue Beetle number 16, written by Tony Bedard, art by Masio Takara. This is the final issue of this series, and so last issue we ended with Blue Beetle being tied up by 2 big bulky guys and saying, hey, you will be part of the hunted. This issue picks up 3 years ago. Jaime and his friends all just looking up at the stars saying like, yeah, you know, space. What if there were aliens and stuff? I wonder if they'd be cool. And Paco's like, oh, I'd be fighting aliens down all day. And Jaime's like, you know, not everyone wants to fight Paco. I know I sure don't. And then we cut to today where I think they're called Eban, are collecting both Moonrunner and Jaime as part of the hunted. And I'm just going to go ahead and lay this out. This is all part of the Threshold comic that just started. It's a thing. But regardless, issue 1 is out at this point. So Jaime, he's looking on this and he's like, okay, Bug Suit, they're talking about a Lady Styx as the leader. Do you know anything about that? And the Suit's like, sounds familiar, but I can't place it. And just like, okay. You mean like something you forgot? And then he's like, yeah, something I forgot. And he's like, okay, well, did you remember the different suits and stuff that we explored earlier? Like the one that gives me blades for hands? And he's like, oh yeah, speed mode. So he turns on speed mode, busts out of the wrappings, and basically tries to start fighting the Eban. And Moonrunner's like, kid, you don't want to do that. That's a very bad move. And so he starts really trying to lay into them, but they just throw a punch, immediately knock him out, and grab hold of his like blade extensions and snap them off, which apparently Jaime can feel. So yeah, big deal there. So he gets tossed halfway around town, back into the cantina that they were in just a few minutes ago, and it turns out that this is dark energy residue that killed them all, not even knocked them out. And we see an ad on TV for The Hunted, which is just, you are given a bounty, and it's a TV show that follows you, and literally anyone on the planet can kill you. That's it. That's the entire goal. And so Jaime's like, oh my god, they want to put me in Hunger Games. So at that point, Blue Beetle, he starts apologizing to Moonrunner. He's like, if I didn't come along, you wouldn't be going through all this. Trouble just follows me anywhere I go. And Ebans are like, dude, he sold you out. Like, the whole reason we have you is because he sold you out. And before they can even continue on this conversation, Sky Witness shows back up again, and he manages to actually do quick work with the Ebans. He throws them out of the way, and he's just like, all right, look, you guys can do whatever you want to Moonrunner. That bug suit belongs to me. So, meanwhile, in the Bronx, everybody of Brenda, I think her name is. Yeah, Brenda, Paco, and Jaime's grandmother. They're all getting text messages. Jaime's family back in El Paso are getting emails and text messages, all coming from Jaime. And just to skip ahead briefly, it's basically the message that he sent out on the ship. They sent it as a video file and just said, hey, Jaime's fine. He'll be back eventually, but he wants you to know he cares about you. He loves you all. Don't worry about it. Everything's going to be okay. And he just gives heartfelt messages to each of his family members and friends, just saying, like, try to just be okay with him out of the picture for a little while. He'll be back before you know it. So as that's going on, we see Sky Witness fighting against the 2 guards, and he's like, oh, well, I guess that means he's kind of on my side, so maybe we should go save him. And Moonrunner's like, dude, let's bail. I don't know why you are so set on defending him. And it's like, well, he was a human at one point. Moonrunner's just like, and? you guys are weak down on that planet. You wouldn't last 10 seconds if you care about everyone on your planet that much. But either way, he rushes back in and tries to save Sky Witness. Turns out the Ebons are not as damaged as he thought they were, so because they are immediately ready to get up and fight again. But Sky Witness and him do have at least a tenuous relationship of helping each other. But during the montage of him talking to all of his family members, we see Sky Witness gets grabbed by the leg and basically thrown around, Hulk from Avengers style. He is killed. Like, they just beat him so badly that the bug suit says, nah, he's dead. And so Jaime tries to make a last stand. He holds up defense mode for a while, puts up some shields, but the Ebon just break right through it. And they knock him out. He starts going into a coma. And there's like, oh, don't. You put up quite the fight, kid. You're going to do great on The Hunted. And the last thing we have here is Blue Beetle's adventures continue in Threshold. I can't imagine that this book was selling poorly enough that they decided to cast him off into some random-ass book that just showed up out of nowhere, but they did. So, I don't know. That's kind of weird to me. Of course, they were broadcasting it. They said, I think last issue and maybe even this issue before, they gave little hints that this was going to happen, but it doesn't make it go down any easier, you know? This was a great book. This was it was fun. It was focusing on not only the teenage superhero, but also just his family stuff as well. It balanced it all in an extremely good way that none of the teen books in DC have managed to do. So, yeah, it just sucks to see this end. I got to give this particular issue, I'm going to give it a 7.5. I want to give it higher because the little emotional beats with him and his family really do hit home. Like, to see him just being beaten down while he's saying, like, Jaime's going to be fine, don't worry about it. It sends a message, but it also just kind of cheapens it to know, like, no, he's going to be fine. You just have to buy a different book now. Mind you, a book that cost $1 more at the time of being released. So, neither here nor there. It's a good book. Blue Beetle overall has been a solid book. I highly suggest reading it if you have any interest in what I've been talking about. Just know that kind of cops out on the ending because they just wanted to spin it off into something else. So, farewell, Blue Beetle, we barely knew ye. Legion of Superheroes number 16, written by Paul Levitz, art by Scott Collins. So, this issue is the big election of the leader of the Legion issue. If you remember, apparently there was a write-in campaign where you were able to mail in who you thought should be the leader. I don't know how many votes it got, but this is where it all resulted in. So everyone's all excited, and they're like, oh, I wonder who's going to win. Well, I'm voting for Element Lad, and someone else is voting for Brainiac, and someone else is voting for Dream Girl, and it's just everyone talking about it. Meanwhile, the one girl, Dragon Song Dance, whatever, one of the new Legionnaires, who cares? She's like, man, I'm going to vote for Brainy, but I don't like it. He's kind of a dick. And Brainiac overhears it, and one of the other Legionnaires is like, you want me to go talk to her? Maybe see if you guys can find some common ground? And she's like, no, she's got my vote. I don't care. Or I got her vote. I don't care if she actually likes me or not. But he comes across Glorith, and it was just like, hey, we got to deal with last issue, where you just disappeared randomly. So then we cut to I'm going to call it the A-plot, because the election genuinely doesn't seem like the A-plot. But we cut to the A-plot where Chameleon Lad, Shrinking Violet, or Violet, something like that, and Saturn Girl are all making their way to a place where big dude named Validus from the Fatal Five is being stored, and their Gravity Kid is watching over him, just being like, nah, he's in there, he's trying to bash his way out, but like he's never been able to make any progress because this prison is impenetrable. And so Chameleon Lad and Shrinking Violet both shrink their way to go in between the atoms of the prison and then come out on the other side, and they see him in there and just like, okay, well, he's definitely in here, but what's up, Chameleon Lad? Why do you think that it's not him? And he's just like, I don't know, I just got a feeling. So they try to avoid his punches for a while, and it's spread throughout this, but I'm just going to skip to the thing of Chameleon Lad has a hunch. He grows to the same size as Validus. He like imitates him and looks the same. And as the real Validus throws a punch, turns out that it's just a hologram. He wasn't in there the whole time. And Mon-El is watching this on the camera. He's like, how could I be so stupid to think he was actually in there? So, yeah, anyway, that's the thing. So then we get the other plot, which I don't even know what's happening. Starboy is apparently out of his wheelchair, which I didn't even know was a thing that could happen. And he's basically saying like, yes, I'm ready to go and join the fight, but I'm only going because Nura, who I can't even remember who that is, I think it might be like Dream Girl, is basically also in the fight. And he's like, I kind of want to get out before we are commemorated into our Hall of Fallen Heroes. And we see Shadow Lass walking on. Mon-El apparently had a thing with her, and she's still getting over some guy. All of this is over my head. I don't even care about it. Regardless, Brainiac's doing some tests on Glorith. She's hearing all this, recounting this stuff of like, so you showed up and there was a time storm and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden the thing that was containing her as he's running these tests starts falling apart. And one of his measurement devices fell off the wall. And he's just like, oh, geez, that's weird. That shouldn't have happened. And when he runs some tests on it, he sees that like literally every single setting has been desynchronized from what it should be. And he's like, that shouldn't happen. Somebody must have messed with it. But Glorith has already walked out of the room. She doesn't want to be a part of this anymore. So I don't know. That's a thing. Anyway, they did the whole thing where they found out Validus is fake. Mon-El is like, oh, I should have. The Fatal Five is truly out there. They've managed to somehow sneak their way out, and we don't know what to do anymore. And then Cosmic Lad's like, hey, Mon-El, suck it up. You were a good leader. You did what we could do, and you're still up for election. Whoever's leading will lead the Legion in the right direction. And they shake hands and say, yes, may the best person wins. And at that point, Invisible Kid calls in, and he's like, hey, can I cast my ballot? And he's like, yeah, you're literally the last one to do it. And he presses the button, and we find out that the new leader of the Legion of Superheroes is Phantom Girl. Okay. It means nothing to me. Bravo, Phantom Girl. The only thing they did was at the very beginning of the issue had Phantom Girl say, I don't really want to be the leader, which really makes you wonder how she got nominated. But either way, we get one last epilogue page of an entire like traffic jam, I guess, in space. And then all of a sudden a quark relay does something over and over again to keep them in the space. And then all of a sudden it stops working and they all start falling out of the sky. So bad things happen. Phantom Girl, congratulations. I don't get it. I don't understand why this issue, like, why did we need to have the election for the new leader? If this is a thing that just happens, because they mentioned terms. So if it's a thing that just happens regularly, I guess I can understand that. But I don't understand why it's happening now. I guess, I don't know. I think the writing campaign was really just weird to me. Like, why did we do a whole thing where it's like, do you decide who leads? And then if this has an impact on the story, I'll be impressed. But for right now, it just seems like it's a thing where, oh, we're just going to keep telling this other story about the Fatal Five. And whatever you happen to choose will just be in the background. So we'll see where that goes. As for all the intersocial stuff of like, oh, Mon-El, we used to be lovers, but I'm still grieving over my other one. Dear Lord, I don't care. And that's not because like you haven't tried to make me care. It's that I don't know these characters you're talking about. The name of the one guy, let me see if they say it. Name of the guy, let's see here. You're still in mourning Nigri, and no, they never actually say his name. They just say it's time to get past him, and it's because you hated him. Wasn't his sacrifice a good enough time to show that he was a good man? I don't know who the hell they're talking about. Anyway, I'm going to give this one I'm going to give it a 4. It's passable. It is there. It is an issue of a comic book. But I cannot say anything better than that. Sword of Sorcery number 4, written by Christy Marks, art by Travis Moore. This is filler. That's unfair. It is still part of the story, but it is completely separate. So last issue we had Amethyst, aka Amaya, going through a portal that leads back to the real world because Constantine got his hands on the portal crystal. Then the entire events of Justice League Dark happened for like 7 issues, and now we're picking up again. So Amaya comes out and is just like, hey, John Constantine, where are you? I've been searching all around this house. And he shows up. He's like, hey, I'm right here. What's up? And she's like, I gotta go home, man. It could have been like, I don't know if we're on Narnia time or whatever. It could have been months back there. There was a whole political intrigue going on. He's like, nah, I'm sure you're fine. Don't worry about it. So they make their way through the house, and she's like, hey, by the way, how did you even find our portal crystal? And he's like, I was keeping tabs on your mom because she may have not let you know that she had powers, but she was still using her powers quite a bit in those early days. So I was just keeping tabs on her. And she tries to ask more details, and he's like, no, that's between you and your mom. I'm not getting in the middle of that. So he pulls out the portal crystal, says, all right, I'm ready to send you home. And she's like, actually, hold on. On the off chance that we aren't on Narnia time, we can go anywhere in your little house of mystery, right? And he's like, yeah. She's like, could we go to Chicago real quick? And he's like, why? He's like, I just want to go to Chicago. So he drops her off at Chicago. She uses her powers to change into a normal outfit, borrows $20 from Constantine, along with a cell phone in case of emergencies. And then she just goes down and gets a deep dish pizza because she's like, I didn't have a chance to enjoy this truly before I was yanked away to Nala. So I'm going to really take this in. And as she's leaving the pizza shop, she accidentally walks into the middle of a demon circle and gets dragged through the sidewalk and appears in the business district of Chicago inside a CEO's office being held by demons. And it turns out, I'm not even sure she ever even gets a name, but she is a multinational corporation leader. She's a CEO, and she collects magical objects. And she's like, hey, I used all my demon magic power stuff that I've collected in order to bring you here to Chicago so that I can get your power because I've seen through my magic stuff that you have a lot of power. And Amaya's like, I came to Chicago for a pizza, so I don't know what you're talking about. And in the end, she realizes, or she makes the claim that all of Amaya's power she believes is inside her necklace. So Amaya's like, yeah. Yep, that's where my power is, but I'll never give it up to you. And I'm just going to... They call her CEO Witch or CEO Sorceress. I don't know. I don't care either. So at that point, a whole bunch of demons show up with a whole bunch of other corporate types. Turns out she's holding them hostage, and Amaya's like, okay, and what do I care what you do to them? I don't know them. And she's like, no. You're one of those hero types. I know it. You'll want to save them. And Maya's like, all right, yeah, you got me. Here, take my necklace. And so she passes the necklace over to the woman. The woman uses the woman's name is Eileen. So Eileen uses another magic thing in order to activate the powers, and she immediately transforms into the costume of Amaya. She turns into the amethyst costume, and she's like, I don't feel any more powerful. Why don't I feel more powerful, girl? And Amaya's like, bite me. So at that point, she throws Amaya in with the other demons, and she's like, whoa, hold on, I thought you'd let me go, and them go. And she's like, I lied, sue me. So she announces her entire evil plan, and she's going to use her power and all of her magic stuff to sacrifice them to trade in these lowly demons for higher demons, and then use the higher demons to basically scare congressmen into passing good laws for her. So, yeah. And then Amaya's like, cool, thanks for telling me the plan. Now I don't have to worry about anything else that you might have hidden. So she pulls out her powers, because the powers are not in her, or not in her necklace. They are in her. The necklace is just how she changes her clothes. And then she proceeds to beat up all the demons and go after Eileen. And during the fight, Eileen tries to summon a much bigger demon using Amaya as a sacrifice. But then Amaya's like, hold on, you're wearing my clothes, and they were made for me. Maybe I can still control them despite the fact I'm not wearing them. And she uses her powers to have the cloth strangle Eileen. And she's like, oh, if you want out of it, you just got to give up the necklace. And so Eileen takes off the necklace, gives it back to Amaya. Amaya uses the outfit along with her sword, which of course came with it, to have the portal instead of sucking up Amaya, it sucks up Eileen down into, I'm assuming, hell. And then she just pulls out her cell phone and says, hey, Constantine, remember how you said this is for emergencies? So Constantine shows up, deals with the circle, and then passes the crystal over to Amaya. And she's like, all right, well, you can go home now. And Amaya's like, okay, but like if I take that with me, I can't ever come back. Maybe you should keep it here and just open it up on this side so I could cut back if need be. And Constantine's like, all right, fair enough, but you still owe me $20 for the pizza, so I will be calling you back and I expect you to answer. And she's like, fine, whatever, see you, John. And she jumps in through the portal. And Constantine makes the very ominous ending statement of, yeah, that you went back to the place that dumped its evil on us. Too bad you'll have to pay the price for that. So Constantine has something against Gemworld. What is it? I don't know, but we'll find out. So again, not connected to the main plot and looking ahead to the next issue, she literally, like, next first page just pops right out again. It's a completely skippable issue. You don't need it. But it is good to tie it into the larger DC canon. Otherwise, it would be just this totally separate thing off to the side. And I like when these books cross over a little bit. So I'm going to give this one a 6. It does have its issues, mainly that the villain didn't feel big at all. Like, she was literally just a businesswoman with a side interest in sorcery. So yeah, give it a 6. Hopefully the following issues will pick up the pace just a little bit. And I frankly think it does have it in them. That's it. That's all the comics that came out from DC Comics this January 23rd, 2012. And I would love to sit here and have a nice little chat with you, mano a mano, friend to friend. But I can't, because DC, they decided to call me up and they were like, hey, we heard that 16 comics was too much for you this week. And I said, yeah, it really was. And they said, well, how about this? Next week, we're going to make it less. And I said, really? And they said, yep, we're instead going to do 15 comics. And instead of one annual, 2 of them are annuals, with just as many of them wrapped up in events. And then they stubbed my toe, poked me in the eyes, and called me nasty names, because that's just what DC does to me nowadays. So yeah, next week we have Batman and Robin Annual number 1, Batman Incorporated number 7, Talon number 4, Green Lantern Corps Annual number 1, which wraps up the whole Third Army event, and then for number 16 issues we have Batman the Dark Knight, Superman, Red Lanterns, Aquaman, The Flash, The Fury of Firestorm, The Savage Hawkman, All-Star Western, Teen Titans, I, Vampire, and Justice League Dark. You know it's a bad week when I am upset that I, Vampire is showing up. I don't want to do all of this again where I have to talk really fast and skip over stuff because I have a time that I'm trying to aim for and I overshoot it ridiculously. Okay, anyway, hope you'll tune in next week to watch that meltdown. Thank you very much for watching and listening. If you want to add anything to the conversation, hit me up on Discord or Twitter or Patreon. Question mark, Mr. Moneybags. All those links in the description. But that'll do it for me. Again, thank you very much for watching, listening, however it is you consume this podcast. Make sure to keep tuning in. And as always, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.